examples to protect our environment, you too can become a planet protector.
Keep it clean, Kent!
Perfect. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to our Operation and Public Safety Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 7th, and we're going to get started here. Call this meeting to order. We will start off with the roll call. Please.
Thank you, Council President. Council President Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher. Here. Councilmember Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer. Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Troutner.
Here.
Thank you.
Once you sit down, Councilmember Fincher, you are here.
I am here.
You are here. How you doing today? Good. All right. We have 5 items on our agenda tonight. We've already gone through the first 2. We're going to do approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of the agenda.
Second.
With the move in a second, any question? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. We're going to move on to item number 4, business. The first one, we already approved the minutes without order. That's okay. Minutes from May 17th. May I have a motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would move for approval of the May 17th, 2022 minutes.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Move on to 4B, payment of the bills.
Mr. Chair, again, I would move for payment of the bills.
Second.
Motion in a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number C, this is around the consultant agreement for Segal Group. Is anybody presenting this here? Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't see you back there.
You're not Natalie?
No, I'm not Natalie. I got called away for a family situation. So the Segal Group was a contract that we were bringing forth to do the non-represented compensation study. It was scheduled to start in July. And like all of us, they are having staffing troubles. And so they're not able to staff it for a July start date. They are suggesting they let us know fourth quarter of this year, that what date they'll be able to start in January. Our recommendation would be to continue working with Segal. We did do an RFP. We did get 6 responses. Segal was the top one, and we would like to stay with them. They, if we were to go out again, I don't think it would change the timeline any. And they did have the best presentation, and they would actually be providing us with materials to continue the process forward. So once their work was done, we'd have the ability to continue to replicate their work. But sadly, we don't have a contract for you to actually look at and consider.
Okay. So just curious, so thank you very much, appreciate that. So when they go out, they're going to be looking at, I see in the summary, other cities. Will they have access to other city information so we can do a comparative type?
Yeah, they would do their own analysis, but then it's a matter of, they usually have different survey tools that they would use to send to our comparable cities and any other jurisdictions that they might feel are worthy of us looking at, and they would get that information from those cities. And then it's a matter of the cities actually responding in a timely manner, so that's a challenge sometimes, but.
And I'm assuming when they look at data, it'll be data in the South King County area?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So what we typically do when we do a comp study is look at, 50-mile radius from Kent. We look at cities in size 50% bigger or smaller than us. We'll look at, the city's revenues and other things to make sure that they are the best fit. We actually haven't changed our comps in quite a few years because, those parameters don't change that much for cities. So.
And my last question, you talk about your RFP. I mean, I know what trying to get resources like. I mean, it's just really tough. So I'm assuming once we get started, we'll have a start date and an end date, and we'll hold them to the end date because people come and go. We don't want this to continue to go on, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. They do have a process of 6 months.
Okay.
To get this work done.
Council members, any question, you guys? Are we good?
Okay. Seeing none, Mr. Chair, I would move to authorize the mayor to sign a consultant services agreement with the Segal Group Incorporated for a classification and compensation study for non-represented employees in an amount not to exceed $120,000. Am I
Excuse me.
wrong?
There's no contract, so there's no action.
Oh,
It was an update. We literally found
Right.
late yesterday afternoon about
oh,
their staff.
sorry about that.
Heard you say, I'll just assume we was gonna do it, okay, but the amount
No,
was
you'll-
120K no matter what though, right? We just need to bring it forward.
Exactly. The
Okay.
dollars are going to be the same. We'll just bring you a new contract once we know their
Okay.
start date.
Sorry about that.
Well, that's good.
Hold on
My
to
bad.
that, Councilman.
I was ready.
Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll look forward to you coming back in July. Okay. We're taking action on that soon? Pat? We're taking action on this from here, right? All right, okay. Want to make sure. So item number D, ordinance amendment to City Code 2.34, municipal court salary or judicial position. Pat, please.
All right. Good afternoon, council. We have before you the ordinance to amend the city code 2.34 to increase the salaries of our sitting judges as well as pro tems. As a little bit of background, under state law, we are required to establish judicial salaries by code, and we do that in our code. And traditionally, we have established their salaries at 95% of the rate of district court judges. District court judges' salaries are set by the Washington Citizen Commission on Salaries for Elected Officials. They meet annually, but typically set salaries about every 3 years. Those salaries are then approved, I believe, by the court administrator, and then that's what we have based the city municipal court judges' salaries on. The reality of our municipal court is it's massive. I believe it's one of the biggest in the state of Washington. I don't have the statistics, but I would venture to say that it's bigger than probably 95% of the district courts in the state of Washington to begin with. It doesn't really make sense that we do not pay our judges the same rate as district court judges when they do largely the same thing. They're in our court, which is a super high, I almost said velocity, but high capacity court system. We run a lot of cases through our court. So this request is coming from administration to increase our judges' salaries to equal that of district court judges, which they're very, very similar courts. A lot of, you might think of a municipal court as an inferior to the district court, but it's not. It just has a different jurisdictional boundary than district court. So essentially, with some limited exceptions, our municipal court does the same work as the King County District Court, with some exceptions for civil cases. But otherwise, they're largely the same. And as I mentioned, we have a very high capacity court. They handle a lot of cases. So that's the first part of the motion. So basically what we're asking is that our judges' salaries be matched to district court judicial salaries. Currently, for example, district court judge salaries are at $190 per year, and our judges are at $180 per year. So we're requesting they be bumped up. Effective July 1, the salary would go up to $193. So that's part of the motion you have. The other issue we have is we utilize pro tem judges. Every court does, and that is judges that come in and visit, handle some calendars on a regular basis, like infraction calendars, and just on other times to fill in for our judges when they aren't available due to illness or a conference or something like that. And we have not increased our hourly rate since 2007.
Oh, wow.
And one of the problems you're going to run into in this line of business is if you can make $200 an hour being an attorney, why would you come and be a pro tem judge for $60 an hour? So we're asking for a modest increase to $70 an hour. And we'll see how that goes. And we do have some attorneys who come in and sit as pro tem judges on a regular basis. A lot of times the pro tem judges seek to become judges, and so they need that kind of experience, and that's what the system kind of caters to. But we have to pay them fairly, or else they're going to go back and do their normal work and make a lot more money. So I don't know if you have any questions. Judge Geip from the court is here to answer any questions if you have them. But again, this is a request from administration. All this is in the budget. So we're seeking a motion to approve the ordinance. One more thing. The judicial salary increase for the state goes into effect July 1. July 1. And so while this ordinance will not, our ordinances take effect in 30 days from passage. So we'll go to council in 2 weeks, but we're going to retrospectively apply this to July 1. So instead of a 30-day effective date, it would just match up with how the state increase in judicial salaries would go.
Okay. You might know the answer to this. Can a retired judge do a pro tem, or do it have to be?
Retired judges often are pro tem.
Oh, they're pro tem.
Yeah.
Okay. Status.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can a retired lawyer do it too? If they keep the status? Okay. Okay. Good.
Mr. Chair, this seems more than reasonable to me, and I don't know, I think everybody probably feels the same way.
We okay?
I see some nods, so when you're ready for a motion,
So do it.
okay. This time I'm ready. Mr. Chair, I move to adopt ordinance number 4430 that amends Chapter 2.34 of the Kent City Code entitled Municipal Court to increase the salaries for judges, judges pro tem, and court commissioners to match those paid to district court judges.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We'll let the record show unanimous pass. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, thank you for all your hard work too. We appreciate you. All right, we're gonna move on to item E on the floor with this equity. You will.
Good afternoon, council members. Again, my name is Uriel Varela. I'm here to update you all on 2 areas of focus. So today's going to be on in-language resources and equitable representation. So here we go. So today I'm going to be speaking on, again, the action items selected for in-language resources as well as equitable representation. And as a reminder, these are our 2 of our 5 areas of focus for the strategic plan, and these are the plan goals for each one of these areas of focus. So for in-language resources, we have the City of Kent is committed to providing culturally relevant services and information in multiple languages. For equitable representation, we have the City of Kent recruits and retains a talented workforce that is increasingly reflective of the community we serve, across all positions from frontline staff, advisory boards, and commissions to executive leadership. We've gone so far, we're almost done with the actual co-designing of the strategic plan. So we started in January 19th. This month, we're having our last conversation around the area of focus of community engagement. We met with the community stakeholders last week. We're meeting with the internal core team tomorrow to discuss the recommendations that were shared by our stakeholders, community stakeholders, and then we'll be providing an additional update to council in the coming weeks. So here is what we were looking for. So what are the actual recommendations as far as these action items? So for the first one, we've heard multiple times from community stakeholders that they want us to include a language access plan as part of this strategic plan. So what would an language access plan do for the city? So it would help us identify vital documents from each department and would help us translate those vital documents into the top 5 languages spoken in the City of Kent. It'll also help us provide staff training around language access resources. Training is a requirement, so that is something that we have to develop. We will create translation toolkits to help staff navigate the process of doing the translations. And finally, we're going to centralize resident demographic data warehousing, meaning that all the data that we're collecting as part of this strategic plan will be housed in the Ready office, because typically we are the 2 employees who get the questions around demographics. So we would be housing that information here. So for performance measures, of course, the percentage of staff that is trained is one of the performance measures, and another one is increased knowledge of language access resources and translation process by staff. There was a just informal study done on who knew about the language resources as far as staff is concerned, and we found out that some staff members are not aware that we do have a current language access, like a language line for our residents. So training is needed at the moment. And as far as the community indicator, increased knowledge of language access resources by residents is what we're looking for. We want our residents to know that that is a resource for them if they need it. The next, any questions for next action item is city to collect own language data. We heard time and time again that the city should be collecting demographic data as well as language data. Typically, when we do these plans or when we do strategic planning, we rely on the American Community Survey data, which is census data, as well as Kent School District data. So we want to start collecting our own language data to make sure that when we're translating vital documents, we're actually translating into the languages that are spoken by our community. So that is one of the reasons. So we could do this through a resident survey as well as vital documents, so collecting information based on the vital documents that we identified through this language access plan.
I have a question for Councilmember Thomas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to step on toes or anything here. I'm getting into an area that perhaps I'm not as familiar as I should be, but you're saying that our employees should reflect what the community,
That is the goal, yes.
So let's take, for example, I think there are 14% of our citizens are Asian. So when HR is hiring, are they trying to set goals of 14% or so for something like that? Or are they looking for the most qualified or?
No, so we are not looking to have numbers based on race or ethnicity. We're looking to remove barriers of employment to employment. So, for example, we've been working over the last year and a half with our HR department to figure out ways that, or barriers that are impeding folks from applying. So, for example, in a specific application for a job, they might have something around driver's license needed for that position. Sometimes driver's licenses are not needed, especially if not driving for the city. So removing that could be the way that we address those barriers. So no, we're not looking to hire based on race or ethnicity. That is not allowed. So we're just looking to remove the barriers for make the actual application process a little bit easier.
So then you're almost saying opposite of what I was saying in the beginning of being reflective of the community.
That is the goal. So when we remove barriers for employment, that increases the number of candidates who apply for the position. That also increases the number of diverse candidates who apply for that position, and that could lead to hiring more diverse employees, not just directly because of their ethnicity or race.
Well, for example, our council, I think, really does represent the community of Kent, We have 2 black, we have a Sikh, we have 1 white male. And I just think that that's good. And we are so I'm wondering if the city is kind of going in that direction or?
I think we are headed in that direction, and I think an important point to understand is that this is generational work. It's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to be reflecting the community within the next few years because employees do stay here in the city for a number of years. So that change will not be reflected within the next few years, but the goal is to remove the barriers to increase the number of applicants.
Right.
To reflect that population.
Okay, that would be good. All right. So basically the most qualified, no matter what background or color or anything else, the most qualified would be in a position to get the job?
The most qualified, and you're going to see in one of the actions that is recommended is the blind recruitment process.
Okay.
Hopefully remove a lot of bias from that process.
That'd be great. And I'm sorry to get ahead of you, I guess.
No, that's okay.
I've been doing it all night.
I want to feel like I need to make a comment. I think at the end of the day, we always want the most qualified person for the job, but the data have proved throughout organizations, the more diverse you are in an organization, the more healthy, different type of thinking in the organization, right? So I think at the end of the day, it is my hope that, when we look at the Kent City employees, that it does represent our community, because that is a healthy thing for the organization as a whole. So,
And we're a healthy council, see?
yep.
Thank you.
But we don't really work.
What?
So the next actionable step that we can take that was recommended is investing in the community by creating an independent contractor list of certified interpreters and translators who reside in the city of Kent. As we know, and as we state often, the city of Kent is one of the most diverse cities in the country. That also means that we have a lot of certified interpreters and translators here in the city who could help us with this process. So creating that list will help us reinvest in the community, as well as make sure that the languages and translations that we do have are actually folks are actually able to read, because we don't want to make that mistake.
I didn't have my glasses on, so Councilmember Fincher, forgive me, but I put them on so I can see now. Please.
Thank you very much, Council President. Back on the other question, I just wanted to say that I'm really appreciative that some of those barriers are being removed. Some of those barriers can sometimes prevent the best person from the job from actually making it through, or actually to the interview process, much more through the interview process. So I appreciate the work of having some of those barriers that hopefully we'll see in just a little while removed, so that people really do have the chance to be considered for the job, so that we can get the candidate who is best.
Definitely, yes. And what often happens is that some folks self-select out of job applications because they feel like they're not qualified based on what is described in the job description. So we want to address that as well. So investing in a community independent contractor list. Performance measure on that would be the percentage of translation and interpretation contracts going to the Kent-based certified interpreters and translators. Again, these are certified by state, so they have that training to do the translations. Over the past few years, we've relied on volunteers as well as staff members who may not be certified, so this is moving us towards a direction of certified translations. And finally, around the area of in-language resources, we were one of the stakeholders community stakeholders that we're meeting with. He is an employee in a tech firm, and he let us know about use of translation API and API. Sorry, I'm not in tech. API is Application Programming Interface, which will essentially is machine learning and will help us lower translation costs over time, as well as increase the speed of translation. So in conjunction with the list of contracted certified interpreters and translators, working with someone like, or a company like Google can help us reduce costs in the future when it comes to translation, because translation is very costly right now. So here are the action items around equitable representation. So we've already mentioned some of this. We've heard time and time again from community members that we need to increase the number of multilingual staff to make sure that all as the top languages are covered by staff members. We also want to retain diverse staff that we already have. So if we focus solely on diversity, we may have a revolving door and just having employees leave because they don't feel included. So making sure that we prioritize specific languages in recruiting of customer-facing positions to address language gaps. So the first step would be identifying and creating a list of multilingual employees to find the language gaps that exist within our city at the moment. And as far as retention, offering employee activity groups opportunities to current staff, or also known as affinity groups that could meet during lunch or after work, to have employees feel more like they belong and finding commonalities with each other. So the wellness committee has talked about these activity groups. So some folks have talked about biking. We see folks playing Frisbee out here. So making sure that employees feel like they belong and feel like they're able to create a new group if they want to and connect with each other. And finally, an exit survey around questions around inclusion. So when employees are exiting the city, we want to make sure to know not exactly the reasons, but making sure that they felt like they belonged here in the city of Kent, and that's not the reason why they're leaving. The next step is a created incentive policy for employees who wish to use their multilingual skills. We do have some employees who receive that incentive at the moment. So we want to make it more formal and create that policy. So that, I believe, is in process, or it started, the policy design started already. So we need to make sure that the number of languages spoken by staff should match the top 10 languages by our own internal data as well as census data. The next action item is partner with community-based organizations to create a diverse candidate network for city job openings. So we talked about sharing job openings and with community-based organizations, but in the past, we've partnered with resettlement agencies to create a pipeline for possible employees or potential employees, because a lot of the refugees that are being resettled and a lot of the immigrant communities that are here in the city of Kent are highly educated and capable. And I know that we have in the past hired former refugees who I believe were hired as engineers here at the city of Kent. So we want to make sure that we are currently starting those conversations with community-based organizations, and there's an interest there to meet the need that we have as far as recruiting for the positions that we have open. I don't know why this is stuck, but.
Kim, I think it's stuck, he said.
So the final two action items are increase the city municipal equity index score. So the Human Rights Campaign is the largest civil rights organization that is looking to move equality forward for the LGBTQ plus community. And every year they grade cities. Out of a score of possible score of 100, the city of Kent is at 80 points, and I believe that we could be at 90 plus at the moment. So increasing that score makes us look better in front of potential employees who are looking to work in an inclusive environment, and this would help with recruiting, especially recruiting folks who are part of those communities. And the next one is create the blind recruitment process. We've mentioned this multiple times. One of the biggest limitation that we have at the moment is technology, so as well as capacity. So we would have to do this manually if we moved forward with this at the moment, and that's a capacity issue, and we're not able to do that now. But in years to come, I understand that Workday. Thank you. Got another third try. Will be able to help us streamline that process of a blind recruitment. So next steps, as mentioned, we've covered most of the co-designing with the community members. We have 2 additional meetings with the community stakeholders. One next week and a vetting meeting to vet the strategic plan with them to make sure that we heard them and what they talked to us about is included in the strategic plan. And then in July, we will be coming back with the plan to share with you all hopefully for adoption. So and that is it.
Councilman Fincher, you have questions there?
Yes. On the score, the 80 points, did they also give us the criterion? Do we know exactly where we scored well and where we did not score well?
Yes, so we have an opportunity. So they divided into 5 sections. So one is non-discriminatory laws. The other one is municipality as an employer, so how inclusive you are as a municipality, municipal services, law enforcement, and leadership on LGBTQ plus equality. So we can make strides when it comes to law enforcement, municipality as an employer, and municipal services, because we are doing some of these things already. We just need to let them know that we're doing that, and our score will go up. I believe we have a potential of increasing our score by 12 points. For next year. So that is definitely a goal.
Thank you.
Hey, just one comment. I really like the comment, about, once we get them, we got to make sure we keep them here, right? We have a lot of tendency where people, we go out and do all this recruiting, and then once the employee get here, and within a year they don't feel at home, and then they leave. So I like the fact that you guys took care of that. The another thing that's a pet peeve of mine, I know you got TBD, right? So I don't like TBD, so I don't know what's the plan around
I
putting.
can speak on that.
Okay.
So as far as to be determined, so the first item, language access plan, we have a first draft complete.
Okay.
So we need to connect back with our legal department to see if that's ready to go. We're also completed the 2 toolkits that will be part of that that language access plan to help us identify those vital documents. As far as the to be determined for the other actionable items, we want to wait until the plan is complete to go back to the community and look at what the priorities are. We understand the priorities just based on conversation at the moment is equitable representation, but we want to allow for public input on what should be prioritized as far as these actionable steps.
Okay. And I said this last time, I said again, I really like the way this is progressing. So you're doing a really good job, so I really appreciate it. Thank you. Any other question, comments, council member? We okay?
Right here.
Councilmember Thomas, go ahead.
So, once again, I don't want to step on toes here, but what was the last one you read, the LGBTQ?
Increase the city municipality equality index score. So this is a score that's provided to us by an organization by the name of Human Rights Campaign, which is the largest civil rights organization for the LGBT.
It was the part about the LGBTQ, if I said that right, that you talked about there. It sounded like it was the last one that you read. It sounded like, and I hope I misread that, as being preferential by someone being of that persuasion.
There's no preferential treatment in the strategic plan. What we're
But
looking.
it's part of the rating system. I thought you said, did I hear that right, somebody?
Oh,
no,
you're
I did
asking
not.
About the grading system
Yeah,
by
the
the
grading,
organization.
yeah.
The grading?
Yeah, so I can provide you with that list of how they grade the city. It's pretty long, and it has a number of different, I think it's...
But what was the last one you read?
Okay, so leadership on LGBTQ plus equality. So this could mean having a liaison in the mayor's office from that community. So that's one of the ways that we're scored. There's other ways that we're being scored on that specific segment there, but
that scoring, is that the quantity?
Scoring is just how much the city has done to make this space more inclusive for that community.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Any other question? Are we good?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to get some info from Finance. Michelle.
Hi, good afternoon, Council. I'm Michelle Ferguson, the Financial Planning Manager, and I'll be presenting the April 2022 monthly financial report. Okay, so highlighted on this first slide is going to be the property tax revenue. So it's kind of highlighted in orange because seems like it's coming in lower than it should. So it is lower than it was in 2021 at this point in time. And it has been every month. But if you compare it to budget, we're actually coming in slightly higher. So it's one of those timing issues on when the revenues come to us from King County. So next month, we should be above where we were in 2021. And then below that is the sales tax revenue, and we're going to keep seeing this coming in really strong. And if you notice, in March and April, the revenues have been kind of declining month over month, but that is not going to continue for the May revenues. I took a look, and they actually are back at the 2.3 million range for the general fund. So what we thought might look like slowing was just a temporary dip. So they will continue to come in strong, at least for the next month. I'm not sure if that's attributed to more online purchases or the inflation. It's probably a combination of both. So we'll just have to see where the year takes us. Then highlighted on this slide are the other revenues, which include licenses and permits, charges for services, intergovernmental fines and forfeitures, and other miscellaneous revenues. Over the last 4 months, these revenues collectively have been coming in higher than during the same time in 2021, which shows that revenues are continuing to slowly move in the right direction. So we'll kind of take a look at that on this next slide. Highlighted in the blue are licenses and permits and charges for services. And you can see that those were, are so far for 2022 are coming in higher, quite a bit higher than in 2021 and slightly higher than they were in 2020 right before COVID hit or was just starting. Down at the bottom, transfers in, that is just highlighted as a one-time transfer into the CARES funding, and that's not a normal thing, so it's making it look like we have a large variance, but it's just a one-time thing. And then at the top, they're just highlighting that property tax, how we're about $600,000 off where we were last year at this time. And then down at the bottom right, so there's 4 months have been gone through the year, and so you expect revenues to be at least at 33%, but they're not. And that's because we have a large amount of transfers in budgeted, and that's for all of the ARPA projects. So as the year goes on, that number will climb. So it has nothing to do with our regular revenues, it's just that transfer in. So there's not a whole lot of concern or anything to note on any of these other funds, but I just thought I'd point out some of the funds that kind of have a higher variance than normal. We talked about it last month in the March report, the lodging tax revenues. We had that transfer in of $285,000, so that's kind of why it's quite a bit higher this year than it was in the other years. But if you ignore that transfer in, revenues have picked up from 2021, and they're only $6,500 short of where they were in 2020. So we're seeing some slight growth there as well. For the Capital Resources Fund, revenues for sales tax and REIT still are coming in very strong. REIT so far, the revenues through April are over what has been budgeted, just slightly, but they are over. So anything that we receive from this point on will just be extra that will go to fund balance. And expenditures, there's a variance there because there was a large transfer out at the beginning of the year for expenditures last year. Down at the bottom, central stores, we don't really talk about it too much. It's an internal service fund, and it doesn't do a whole lot other than that is where we charge our postage and our internal office supplies. So the revenues and expenditures are kind of just an in and out as we use them throughout the year. And it looks like we're kind of trending a little less than normal, but I looked at the numbers for May, and they'll be right back on track of where they historically are for those months. And the last slide, liability insurance. There's a large variance because we transferred in $4.4 million from the general fund last year at this time. So that's where that variance is coming from.
Okay.
Any questions?
So there's no real big thing, I mean, except for the sales tax. That looks good coming in, but other than that, things seem to be pretty much on pace.
Yeah, sales tax and REIT are
REIT.
strong performers right now.
Okay. Question, any council member? We good? Okay, thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it. Okay, with that said, we are going to adjourn until 5 o'clock. Thank you.